Welcome to another powerful episode of Growth Leaders, where we dive into the journeys of leaders who don't just break the mold, they reshape it. Today, we're in for something truly special as we are joined by a trailblazer in the world of diversity, equity, and the talent development. Smita Pillai, the dynamic Chief Diversity Officer at Regeneron. She's led teams from around and the ground up, expanding their reach, and has become a true champion for inclusion in the workplace. Her leadership style, let's just say she doesn't follow the rules of traditional leadership. She rewrites them with honors like top 100 under 50 executive leader and outstanding 50 Asian American in business. Her resume speaks volumes. What makes Smita a leader to watch is a commitment to creating spaces where every voice is heard, every talent is recognized, and every person belongs. So, if you ever felt like you didn't quite fit the leadership mold or wondered how to create lasting change in your organization, this episode is for you. This conversation is packed with insights you won't want to miss. Smita, we are absolutely thrilled to have you with us today. Welcome to Growth Leaders.
Thank you so much, Peter, for having me. Delighted to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
Great, Smita. I'm just going to kick off. So, what is the magic behind Regeneron and it being a radically innovative company? And a little bit around Regeneron, but also you running the all learning, the leadership and organizational development, the DEI, and you for work for the future initiatives. So why is it radically innovative? Radically innovative company.
I think the company is innovative because of how the company was founded. It is still a physician scientist led company. So the two co-founders of the company, Dr. Len Schleifer and Dr. George Yancopoulos, who founded the company purely based on the need to look at science to deliver medicine for humanity, medicine for patients, medicine for rare diseases that no one's really looking into because there is not an immediate commercial success in sight. And that initial concept of this company has kind of led this company to be who it is today, 36 years since the founding. And even now, almost 15,000 employees globally, we still follow the science. It is not a commercially driven company. It is driven purely by science. We follow the science. So that is the core of the company. And in terms of my role, I'm very honored and privileged to lead all of the efforts around diversity, equity, and inclusion, talent development, organizational design and development, as well as our culture, which particularly focus on culture of innovation and future of work. So it's a pretty good mixed, broad portfolio, and I am honored that I have the opportunity to lead this fantastic company in these areas.
And we're going to dive into a little bit what that actually could mean. But you have had an incredible learning or journey leading diversity and talent development. Is there moments where you have felt like you actually has been a misfit as a leader? And maybe we should explain what misfit comes into play here. So how has that influenced your leadership style?
Oh, absolutely, Peter. If you ask me, have you ever felt like a misfit? The answer is absolutely 100%, almost all the situations that I've been in, especially in corporate America and in most of the Western world countries that I've operated in. I have felt like a misfit from day one. And how has that influenced my leadership style? I would say that it was a journey through which I got to a point of embracing my misfit. And I suspect each one of us has felt like a misfit at some point in our lives, or perhaps most points in our lives. The definition of misfit, in my opinion, is when you feel like you don't belong. You are questioning your credentials. You are questioning whether, do I have the right degree? Am I from the right pedigree? Am I from the right social class? Can I fit in here? Or do I have to adapt? Or worse, fake it? And the saying goes, fake it till you make it, right? And that is all well and dandy until you realize that faking takes so much energy out of you that you're not able to bring your true self to work. And all of your energy, humans, all of us have limited energy, right? If you're tapping into that energy to fake and fit in versus tapping into that energy for creative thinking, new bold ways of doing things, you're just completely missing the point of who you are. And it took me a while to realize that, yes, I'm a misfit, and no, I don't need to try to fit in. It's okay that I'm a misfit. In fact, it could be my superpower. And if you can tap into it, not only do you benefit from it, but your company and in many cases, a society benefits from it.
So how does that influence your leadership style by actually appreciating that you may not be the same as, what you believe people should think about you? But I guess that's a perception of yourself too. Or so how does that influence and how does it come all together? Because somewhere it has to come into how much you believe in yourself also, which can be a problem. But
Yes, especially as you're starting off your career journey. But from a leadership style perspective, I think I like to say that and I say this to my teams and to broader audiences, which is my leadership style over the years has adopted around three core principles of how I lead, which is a combination of head, heart, and guts. And that has served me, I think, for the most part, really well. And what I mean by
mm,
that is, at the heart of everything is your values, your emotions, how you approach the world, how you build relationships with people around you. How much of it do you value, right? The emotional piece of it. But then I also have realized that you can't just be a emotional, empathetic leader who's always kind to everyone. Sometimes you need to take decisions that are not necessarily on the face of it kind. And sometimes you have to take
mm,
the decision which is more head based, which is more logic based, and it's the right thing to do for the business. You can't lean in with your heart. You have to think about it from a business point of view. Does it make sense for the business? And that's where the head comes in. And then finally, the guts, which is, it's a very simple, plain way of saying, do you have the courage? Right?
mm,
Do you know what is in your guts? Do you know what is right? And when you know what
mm,
is right, do you have the courage to speak up? Because oftentimes, especially in leadership roles, you have a seat at the table, and many people that you represent don't have that seat at the table. So do you have the courage or the guts, the sheer guts, to just do the right thing? And that takes you a
mm,
very long distance. So it has been an interesting combination of head, heart, and guts that has helped me
mm.
in my leadership journey.
It sounds a little bit, we have done for a year back research into kind leadership, or leadership by kindness,
Mm.
which we actually have training about also. And people think, well, how could you be a leader being kind? But it's very much about the heart. But that does not mean you could have a very clear opinion what is right and wrong. And but the empathy comes in there, so people feel
Yeah.
welcome into it. Uh, have you seen, in the corporate world, there in many companies, and you've been into a few large ones, they value conformity. How, how have you seen that approach when you want to take initiatives, etc., or you maybe have just gone above that? That's how it was, and this is how we want to pursue. Or how have you reflected upon that? Because it is quite often when you get
Yeah.
into a strong culture,
Yeah.
uh, it's always been like this.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating, right? That I have been with companies that have led with, we've done this way, we've tried it, so don't try to rock the boat. And then I have been with companies, which, my current company being one of that, which is just because you've always done it that way doesn't mean that's the right way. And that's the approach my
Mm,
current company takes. And that fits in really nicely into my own leadership style. So, yes, conforming to a company culture, conforming to values that have done well for the company, in many ways it's a good thing, because
mm,
what has made a particular company successful, just you as an outsider, if you're coming in and trying to rock the boat and say that all things is wrong and let me tell you how things are done, perhaps is not the best approach going in. The best approach, perhaps in my opinion, going in is to listen and observe and absorb what has made the company that you've just joined really successful. Once you've given the time to absorb what is going on in the company, you can then, based of course on your relationships and the equity that you build, that's when you lean into your misfit kind of
mm,
approach, right? I would caution though, going into the company guns blazing is not a right approach, right? It's not a right approach for anyone, not for you, not for the company, not for the people who are embracing you in. But once you're settled, once you've built that relationship equity, can you lean into that relationship equity and ask your friends, peers, mentors, sponsors even, right? I'm thinking about this differently, right? Can we have a discussion? And if the company is wise, or if the team is wise, or the group is wise, they will absorb and want to embrace that person who's a misfit versus shunning them. So it's a two-way street, right? You can't go in and think that you can change the world in one day.
And those are actually very valuable insights where people do sometimes get it wrong. So continue on that. So what advice would you give to an aspiring leader or aspiring leaders who feel that they don't fit into that traditional leadership model? How can they turn what they perceive as a disadvantage into a unique advantage?
Yeah.
I mean, it really follows on what you're talking about here, but
Yeah.
take
No,
it to the
absolutely.
individual.
I think again, based on my observations and my own experiences over decades across the globe, one thing I will say is that going in having a sense of humility and having what we often call here a beginner's mindset, which is being open and being inquisitive and being curious and questioning, but not challenging, right? Questioning with the right approach. And that when you question from a deep sense of curiosity and humility, people around you sense that the questioning is coming from a sense of genuine curiosity and humility versus let me tell you how to do things. So when you approach one of the biggest advice that I would offer for especially people who are starting off in their career or midway through their career is to have a beginner's mindset. So not only so before you lean into your own, whether you're a misfit or not, you need to absorb what's happening so that then you can contrast that with, does that align with your values? Does that align with your experience? And what are you bringing to the table that can add to what has made this group already successful, right? So that positive approach really takes the entire group forward, almost onward and upward, versus getting into this whole discussion of who's right and who's wrong.
Yeah, and you also open up for the buy-in of your ideas in the next step. I'm going to make a jump here. You're very involved in the diversity and inclusion as such. And when we spoke last time, you talked a little bit about initiatives you're taking and also outcomes as you see. Is that something you would like to share? It may be generic or if it's from Regeneron or previous, it's up to you. But it's interesting
Yeah.
listening into how you approach it and what you feel you are getting out of it and what the company's getting out of it.
Yeah, I think diversity is shouldn't be more complicated than our population, right? If you look at our population around the world, it is diverse. It is a fact. So there is no point fighting it, right? If you and by the way, if you define diversity as truly what it is, which is difference, it's purely difference. That doesn't mean it's limited to you're different by race, ethnicity, gender identity, gender expression, right? Disability. There are different nuances around diversity, and each of us is different in our own way. And so I think the complexity around diversity needs to be kind of diffused, that each one of us is diverse in our own way. And when you approach that angle to the business, whichever business you are in, whether you're in media, whether in financial services, healthcare services, when you approach diversity as a fact, equity is about fairness. I don't know, I have yet to meet a single business leader who thinks he or she or they want to run their business unfairly, right? Everyone wants to be fair. Every leader wants to be fair. Equity is all about fairness. It's not more complicated than that. Inclusion is a choice we make. I mean, I can choose to be an inclusive leader or not. And either ways, it's fine, right? People will still come to work and deliver the goods. But if you are an inclusive leader, your product, your output goes up 6 times, and that is proven by research. Your innovation goes up 3 times, your productivity goes up 6 times. So you choose whether you want to be inclusive or not. So when you keep these concepts in mind about diversity is a fact, equity is fairness, and inclusion is a choice. And when you combine it and say, okay, if I am in a business and if I want this business to be successful, don't I want to tap into the most successful, talented talent pool across the globe? By that, by default, that is diverse. Don't I want to tap into their ideas and make my company more innovative, more uh, attractive to the patients or to the customers that I'm serving? That is about inclusion. And don't I want to make sure that I'm fair to my employees so that they stay back and they continue to contribute to the long-term success of the company? And that's about fairness and equity. So when you connect DEI into your people, which is again going back to the heart of what we talked about, your people, your talent in any company is what makes you successful. In our case, in my current company, we have this concept of better world. So we look at diversity, equity, and inclusion as better workplace, better science, and better world. It's as simple as that. And no one can argue that that's not the things we want to work towards as humans. So that's how we kind of shape it in a way that makes meaningful sense to employees across all levels.
So if we take that one level more, I mean, one question which strikes me is that why is it so difficult to get it running? I mean, I interview not least a lot of women around the world, and I
Yeah.
get the same feedback in more or less every place that this is still a very difficult question. And how have you approached it to get it, you know, actually getting results out of it? Because I mean, it has to stream through the organization. It has to go
Mhm.
down to the team leaders, to the leaders everywhere, and to the employees.
Yeah.
So what are your tactics, if I put like that, to
Yeah.
get people to get these insights which you are talking about?
Yeah. I think the fundamental thing is that the uh, initiatives around diversity, equity, and inclusion have to be leader led. Right? It cannot be run by a small group of diversity professionals, however smart, talented, passionate, or experienced they are. You need to have the leader buy-in, and the leader buy-in can only be built if you build a strategy that connects to the core of the business. Right? In this case, it is science. So when our science leaders look at diversity as something that enhances science, makes science better, when I was in a media company, the media leaders wanted to have better sales, better ROI. And when you connect diversity to the results, leaders lead it. So one of the fundamental things is that if leaders take take the onus and run DEI as something that they are focused on and they believe in, that is
Mm,
really establishing the program for long-term success. We
mm,
have 10 employee resource groups, which are all inclusive. They are not exclusive groups. These are groups that are formed because you believe in disability inclusion, and therefore you have a group of employees who either have disabilities themselves or have family members or friends or simply care about disability inclusion. And you invite people into to understand how disability impacts the workplace and what does that mean if you include people with a range of disabilities. That's just a simple example of how things become more meaningful if it is connected to people's lives. And people's lives
mm,
is not just defined by, again, going back to the definition of race, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation. There are so many things that impact us. I could be a parent and could be looking for a support system, and having really inclusive, equitable workplace policies that support. So as
mm,
long as we don't make programs that are divisive or, exclusive, as long as we, as diversity champions and leaders, make programs and make investments that bring everyone into the fold, leaders leading it,
mm,
people across all levels feeling like they have a voice, and also make it practical that we can't be all things to everyone. Right? We are ultimately, if it is a public limited company, you have to also keep all of the stakeholders in mind. Right? There are certain decisions
mm.
that need to be made because the focus is patients in this case. Right? So let's focus
Yeah.
our efforts on patients versus divisive social topics. So it is complex. That's why perhaps you're hearing this from many leaders, but it's not impossible.
And that takes me also, where you're very clear on where the question belongs. I mean, it belongs in the executive management, in the CEO as such, as setting the tone on where we want to go. But if we just go a few years back, there was a lot of
Mm,
DEI managers appointed. And that has partially faded. And I would imagine it has to do that it's not integrated into a more business role as such. So where do you see this belongs? Is it in the HR, the head of HR? Where does it belong, or in an organization to actually get heard in a positive way?
Yeah, yeah. I think it depends on the company. It truly depends on the
Yeah.
company and the leadership in the company. Most of the cases, diversity leaders do report into the CHRO, the Chief Human Resource
Mm,
Officers, and that works if we have the right Chief Human Resource Officer and the HR team is supportive and embracing the concepts around diversity, equity, and inclusion. It doesn't work if HR looks at it as another add-on kind of thing on the side that some group needs to do, right? So it all depends
mm,
on the company. But I will say that no matter where it reports to, or the chief diversity officer, the diversity managers report into, it is important that they are the group is empowered, is funded appropriately, is connected to the key business leaders, and has access to the key business leaders, so that these are diversity leaders are often influencers, right? So
mm,
in order to influence, you need access. So
mm.
if as long as that access is not curbed, the work gets done, no matter where it's reporting into.
And now, when you built your own team, I mean, you started by Regeneron, yourself, and then you're quite many people in your team. How did you build your team? Going from one
Yeah.
now to, I don't know if it's 30 today, what it is. How have you done that?
Yeah, I mean, it has happened through good work, and work builds on good work. That's the only thing I'll say. I'll also say that the company's vision, right, as the company is growing, you want to put the right leaders in the right place at the right time, and that's kind of what has happened here in terms of, is there an opportunity for us as we are evolving as a company to integrate diversity, equity, and inclusion concepts into things that truly matter and will have an impact for all our colleagues, things like learning and leadership
Mm,
development, things like organization design and development, right? Is the organization designed in an inclusive way? Are the leaders leading and set up to lead in a way that they are inclusive and empathetic and impactful? From a future of work point of view, how has
mm.
the concept of diversity is if it is a fact now, it is going to be in our face in the next few years with 5 generations in the workforce. So embedding diversity into every element of the talent development continuum and organizational development continuum is how this organization wanted to evolve this work. And I thought it was a brilliant idea, and I went along with that.
That's just great. You know what? I'm going to have some rapid fire questions with you to end
Okay.
off here.
Okay.
Thank you. One word that describes your leadership style.
I don't know if it's one word, but it's head, heart, and guts.
That's one word put together in three. What's the last book you read?
Tipping point.
Okay. What is that about?
It is about how things
Yes,
change
it is.
at the drop of a hat, and it dramatically shifts things. It's an old book, it's not a very new book, but I'm rereading it now.
Right. Favorite quote or mantra you live by?
You can have it all, not just all of it at the same time.
One skill you think every leader should have?
Empathy.
Thank you. You're doing so great, Smita, and thank you having you here on the show.
This was pretty rapid fire. Yes, thank you. Thank you for
Yes.
this opportunity.
Okay.